Hello and welcome to our second video of our two-part video series. For those of you that didn't attend the first one or just do a recap of the first one, what we did is we downloaded Postman and we imported some of the examples for Foglight into Postman so that we can go ahead and use the API. Now what we're going to do in this one is give a practical example where I'm going to run a script from XML. And the run script format that we're going to be looking at is we're going to pass an auth token in on the header, and then we're going to create a JSON body, not XML, but JSON. And the JSON body format is where you just pass a script, and then you pass the entire script, which is going to be a Foglight Groovy script. We're going to pass that in the form of a Java string. So if I test this, what we're going to do at the end is this is just going to sleep for 20 seconds. And then what it's going to do is going to produce some output. So what we'll do at the end of our demo, or the end of the code actually, is to demonstrate the output, the return output that will come back from the Foglight management server upon the successful completion of running the script that's included. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this data JSON value, and we're going to get that value into our UI and just print it so you can see the output. So let's jump right over to our code example, and the example is encoded. I use the Eclipse IDE, and you can pull this down. For those of you that haven't used it before, it's a free download. And I'm going to start with our main function. So I coded a main function, and all the main function does is two things. It's going to go ahead and call the login function, or create a login class and then execute a login in order to get a token, and then it's going to pass that token to another class we had called blackout, which is going to set the blackout. So those are the two examples I'm going to give. So if you look here, we'll first create a new login class, and then we'll call the get token function inside the login class. In this case, instead of using like we did in the first example, we use an auth token to actually log into Foglight. In this case, we're just passing a username and password. And then once I get a valid token back, I'm going to go ahead and execute a blackout. So I'm going to create a new blackout object, and then I'm going to set the blackout, call the set blackout function. And in this case, I've just hard-coded what we're blacking out for now, but you can certainly go the extra mile here and actually put in the host name or whatever you want to black out. You can include those as arguments. But what I am using the token right now, so the token that we get back from the login call is being passed to our blackout function. Now before I go too much further and jump into the login or the blackout classes and functions, what I want to do is I want to show you how we started with the Groovy script. So for that, let's go back up and go to our Foglight management server, and then we'll take a look inside of the management server and see where we started. Okay, so what I'm going to do inside the management server is I'm going to go to setup and support and go to my current blackouts, and I'm going to look at all the blackouts I have. What I do is I'm just going to get rid of all these blackouts, so we're starting with a clean slate, and I'm going to remove them. Right, now the second thing I want to do is I want to add a blackout. So I just coded a blackout script, and for now, just for simplification purposes, this is a hard-coded thing that we're blacking out. So this set blackout on object, it's actually passing in one object, which is a host, and then it's applying a schedule, which is called all time, and it's blacking out, and it's calling this test1, the blackout. So we'll call this, I'll call this demo from Foglight, and we'll do another one called demo from API later. So when I run this, it's going to return back the blackout object, and then if I go back and close this up, I can go back into now my blackouts, and I should see a blackout with that, a demo from Foglight. So that's my blackout. It's set, the always schedule is set, and if I open it up, I can see that it's set on the ECSM FMS host. So it turns off all the alerts on that host all the time. So it's continuously blacked out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to our API. And what I did is actually let's take a step back. Before we jump into the API, what I did is I needed a way to format the string. So that Groovy function that we've developed, I used this free formatter, and let's go ahead and use that again. And the free formatter is what I can use to get all my escape characters out. It's really difficult to go through that code line by line and figure out all the escapes that you need to put in. So this free formatter tool is great, and I'll include this in the resources section of the blog post. But what I could do is I can go back to my Foglight code. So let's go back to that script console, and I could take that blackout code out. So I'm going to select all the code, and I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to go back to my formatter and paste it in. And what you need is an escaped basically string so that we can copy it. So I'm going to say escape that, and what that will do down here is it'll give me the escape string. And this escape string is what we need to paste into Foglight. Okay, so I'm going to take that escape string, and then what I did inside of my code is I actually put that in a resource file. So I put in a resource file called blackoutscript.groovy, and I pasted that Groovy script inside there. This way it's included with my Java compiled executable, so I don't need to have an external script file that it's referencing. I could have alternatively, what I could have done, I could have put it right into the blackout class as a big string. But what I did instead is I put it in this file, and the first thing I have it do is I have the blackout code read the file into a string variable. And then what I do is I'm going to print that line out so that we can see the file and what it's actually going to run. And then what I'm using is in both my login class and also my blackout classes, I'm using the Jersey libraries. There's some other examples out there that use the JavaX WS libraries. I have a preference for the Jersey libraries, and that just makes it a little bit easier to interact with the REST API. So what the Jersey libraries require is they first require you to define a web resource. So my client that I'm defining here actually comes from that Jersey library. And then it says define a web resource, which also will come from the Jersey library. And then the client, the resource needs a URL that it's going to run. So this is the basic URL from our API that's going to call the run script. Now what I also need is my token. So this is just a print line to make sure I got the token that's being passed in from my main function. And then what it's going to do, it's going to format. So this is formatting my JSON variable that I need, or my whole JSON string rather. So it's putting the script text in there that's required from our API call that we looked at earlier. And then it's reading that entire Groovy script into this string. And that's the format that we need to get that string in. That took a little bit of work to figure that all out, but it does work well. And then here what it's doing is it's building that client, and it's actually doing the post. So here you'll see what I'm doing is I'm putting the auth token in the header, and then I'm taking our JSON object that I created up here, and I'm putting that JSON object inside of the post, so inside of the body. And after that executes, it's going to come back and it's going to get a response code. And then down here you'll see as long as everything's okay, what it's going to do, it's going to print out the output. And if you'll notice, the output here is basically going to be the class, the string class that we got off of what Foglight is returning. Okay, so if you go to the login function, I'm going to include this in the resource as well, but the login function is very similar. It's a bit simpler. All it's doing is it's taking a username and password in the get token function, and then it's doing the same thing with the Jersey client, and you'll see where it's formatting the client. It's a bit easier because all we have to do here is when we go ahead and do the post, all we have to really do is put in that username password combination. So you'll see here I build my form with the username password that was passed from main, and then the form is passed as the body. Okay, so just quickly I'm going to execute this and explain the output, and that'll be the end of our example. So when we execute this code, what we should see is first it should say whether it was able to go ahead and log in properly. So was I able to go and get a token from Foglight? And then secondly, after I got a token, so it does say login successful. And then if you remember, secondly, what we did is we printed the file. So this is the print of the file right here. And let me go ahead and turn on line wrap here so we can just see that detail. And this prints the whole Groovy file, which is the escape Groovy file that I ran through that code formatter. So this is all my Groovy code right here. And then at the end, you'll see what it does is my blackout call. So it returned a status 1 back from there. And what I had on the test, this is my test that I had in that code. So I should see another blackout in there with a second blackout that was created with actually the names. It says Wells test. So Wells test is the name of my new blackout. So just to confirm, if I go back to Foglight, and we'll quickly end this one, I'll go back to my Foglight console here and go back to blackouts, and you should be able to see that I created a second blackout, Wells test. So that's the one that was created from that REST API call. So that's a quick demo just to show you how you wrap all the API calls into code. It'd be slightly different for getting objects or getting data, but that should give you the general gist of it. Thanks again for attending our series, and we hope to talk to you more about the Foglight API soon.